Hello, everyone, and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley. I'm Kimberly Hawkins, Spiritual Director here, and we're so grateful you decided to join us for our Sunday celebration. And happy spring, by the way. We are a progressive, inclusive, spiritual community teaching tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everyone. We honor you and welcome you no matter where you happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. With me this morning is practitioner Laura Stewart, who will be giving our invocation and reading shortly. Holding high watch from home, our practitioner Frank Young. And managing our chat on Facebook this morning is Alexa Ehrlich. Thank you to all of you. Anton Miserak and Laura Berryhill are our musicians this morning, and we go to them now for our opening song.
Good morning. We're going to do a song by Michael Gott.
I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given, to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I am a child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given, to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. Child of the living God, made in the image of perfect love. All that I am, all I've been given, to you, my God, I surrender. I surrender. I surrender.
Good morning. I invite you, as we prepare for today's service, to close your eyes, to quiet your mind, opening our hearts as we relax into the awareness that everything around us is pure spirit. We are immersed in, saturated with divinity. And it can be absolutely no other way, for this is the truth of who and what we are. As we turn within and relax into this peace, I know that all is well, all is calm, all is perfect, whole, and complete. There is absolutely nothing that is lacking, for there is no lack in the divine. So knowing this, we open ourselves up to the beauty of today's service, knowing that it is perfect. And it is perfect simply because we are here. So I give great thanks for all that is being expressed today, for all that is being shared, and for all the ways that we are inspired by Reverend Kimberly's beautiful, enlightening, enlivening talk. I am so thankful for the shifts in consciousness that are taking place right now, within this room and beyond, and throughout the globe. As we awaken to our divinity, to our power and our presence as change makers in the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. I simply release this into the law, knowing that it is done. here and now. Thank you. Amen. Ashe. And will you help anchor this with me as we declare, and so it is. I'd like to talk about the spiritual practice of visioning. It's something that our community is doing right now as we open ourselves up to knowing what our next greatest expression is as Centers for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley, and where that place is that we land. Visioning is based on the premise that there's an infinite intelligence with a more expansive ideas of who and what we are than we could possibly have with our limited perspective and experience. Through the spiritual practice of visioning, we create a space of deep listening, reverential alertness, and internal awareness in order to fully embrace the divine idea that is our greatest good. Our life is the life of the divine, and it longs to express itself uniquely through us, as us, right now. All that is required of us to receive its impress is a willingness to take an inward journey through the evolution of our inner self, our divine nature. Through visioning, we make ourselves available to embrace the divine idea of our lives in order that we may more completely experience and live our highest good. Michael Bernard Beckwith teaches that all spiritual growth is 100% about releasing or eliminating rather than attaining something, because we are already it spiritually. During the visioning process, in asking, what must I release? We open to the revelation of obstacles, encumbrances, and limitations in our beliefs and behaviors that impede our alignment with our vision. The vision is already complete in the divine mind, waiting for us to clear the way. Think of it as washing dirt away from a window so that we can better allow the light to shine through. It is important for us to know that the release is always in consciousness first, but it can also be a letting go on the physical plane as well, a letting go of relationships, ways of being, habits, actions, attitudes, and beliefs. In releasing these things that do not serve the fulfillment of our life's vision, we create a vacuum that spirit immediately moves into to occupy. It is then that we become self-emptied, spirit-filled. It is then that we align with and fully express the divine vision that is us. Namaste.
The medicine pipe was a big part of the glue that held pre-European contact societies together in North America, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multilinguistic, because each person who had a pipe made a vow to the Creator to treat everybody that came into their life with respect, honor, and dignity. We're going to do an all-pipe song from the Blackfoot tradition to honor that legacy that we have, and this is a pipe to strengthen the light workers in every society, every country, every village, every town throughout the world. It's a very old song, pre-Columbian contact song from the Blackfoot tradition. Hey, 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 hey,
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Anton and Laura. Our theme for this month is open to possibilities. Possibilities. You know, there were some heartbreaking things going on in our news this week, and so I decided to start right there. Possibilities. So we talk often in Science of Mind, in our Centers for Spiritual Living, about a world that works for everyone. And what I've realized this week more than ever is that means, for one, a democracy in our country that works for everyone, where everyone not only has the right to vote, but also has access to voting places. And in light of the incidents this week in Atlanta, where tragically we had 8 people senselessly slaughtered at 3 Asian spas, I want to speak to that. You know, there's been a huge uptick in anti-Asian violence over the last year during COVID. And it's caused a lot of trauma and fear, grieving in the Asian communities as well as our communities at large. In Centers for Spiritual Living, we have a committee called the Spiritually Motivated Social Engagement Committee. They put out a statement this week in support, in alliance with our Asian and Pacific Islander communities. And I want to read you a part of that. This was written by a young minister named Reverend Masando Haroka. Fear and trauma in the Asian American Pacific Islander community are very present right now. And as an organization that believes in oneness and holds a vision of peace and human dignity for all, we stand in solidarity with the Asian American Pacific Islander community and speak this prayer for the families that are mourning and more healing of the racism and violence that create suffering in our world. We come to the present moment in a place of sadness and mourning, of confusion and anger, and come to know that in the midst of tragedy, in the midst of these natural responses to tragedy and violence, the presence of the living spirit, the divine, is still fully here. At the center of our being, providing a healing balm and place where both grief and the healing that comes with that grief lives, moves, and has its being. We know this same healing energy is present for the families that have been directly affected by this tragedy. And we too know that the love we feel for our fellow AAPI brothers and sisters that are experiencing the collective trauma of this incident permeates out and surrounds and enfolds their hearts and minds. It is through this love and through the recognition of our oneness that we also stand and mourn in solidarity with the AAPI community and the trauma they've experienced in the past year since the pandemic began. We hold a place of safety, of strength, and of commitment to ensuring and upholding the safety and peace of all, giving special attention to our Asian American Pacific Islander friends right now. And it is from this space we extend this prayer to our country and to the world, holding a place of healing from the ravages of separation, racism, misogyny, and the mindless acts that are birthed from hate and power over one another. We hold a space for the collective healing that is being called forth from each one of us in this sacred time we are sharing on the planet together, allowing our hearts to build bridges of understanding, of greater awareness, and of the mending of all our relationships. We know this work is God's work, and so take refuge in remembering that this healing is being supported by a power greater than ourselves. With each breath, with each tear, with each rush of anger or swirl of confusion, we rest in the knowing that healing is happening within us and around us. And as we rest into that space where grief, healing, and coming together can all take place at once, we give thanks for the heartbreaking that eventually settles into heart opening. We give thanks for the ways in which our own hearts are able to be moved into an active inspiration to stand for one another. With love, with heartbreak, with togetherness, we say, Amen. And so it is. While these recent murders in Atlanta have not been confirmed to be motivated by racism, it's clear that they have added tremendously to the trauma in the Asian communities and beyond. This week, our Vice President Kamala Harris stood in solidarity with the Asian community in Atlanta, and she said this. She said, "None of us should ever be silent in the face of any kind of hate. None of us should ever remain silent." And so with that in mind, I want to address one other issue this morning. When we talk about open to possibilities, I think about the dream that Martin Luther King spoke about, where we can all stand together in equality, holding hands. And yet, across our nation right now, there are many, many bills being introduced in state legislators to limit voter accessibility. I want to preface what I'm about to say by reminding you that when I address these issues, it does not come from a place of partisan politics, but rather from a place of speaking to the deepestly held values we have in our spiritual community, which quite frankly are values held by almost all spiritual communities throughout the world. We speak from a place of moral and conviction and values. So if you haven't had a chance this week to listen to the maiden speech, which means the first time a new senator gets to speak on our Senate floor, I encourage you to tune in to the speech made by Georgia's first African-American senator, Senator Raphael Warnock, who, by the way, also happens to be pastor, you probably know, of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where it used to be the home church and the pulpit for Martin Luther King. And it was also the home church for many, many years of Congressman John Lewis. So speaking on the Senate floor this week, Reverend, I guess I can call him Reverend, and Senator Raphael Warnock said something that I so resonate with because I think he nailed the relationship between, and I think the rightful relationship between spirituality and our political life. And this is just a brief excerpt. As a man of faith, I believe democracy is the political enactment of a spiritual idea, the sacred worth of all human beings, the notion that we all have within us a spark of the divine and a right to participate in the shaping of our destiny. Thank you, Senator Raphael Warnock. I felt inspired and uplifted hearing your words and realizing that we all hold out this possibility of a greater, more just country and world. By the way, I will be including in this week's e-newsletter that goes out to our community resources for us all to take action to stand in solidarity with the Asian American Pacific Islander communities around the world. So I actually entitled my message this morning, Addition by Subtraction. Addition by subtraction, it kind of sounds like an oxymoron. But as Laura so beautifully talked about, our visioning process is just that. It's subtracting whatever might get in the way of our listening to divine guidance, of our being able to embody the highest vision that Spirit has for each of us individually, for us as a nation, and for us as a world. You know, most of us, when we first come into the science of mind philosophy or any new thought teaching, we usually come in with things we want to add to our lives, things we want to shift. Maybe we want a new relationship or a more powerful, harmonious relationship. Maybe we want a new job or more financial flow. Or perhaps, we're looking for better health. And it's a wonderful, wonderful journey when we learn that we don't have to be a victim. Michael Beckwith talked about the 4 stages of consciousness. The first one is a victim consciousness, and unfortunately, many of us found ourselves there when we first came to New Thought. And this is a consciousness where we kind of feel like life happens to me, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it. So we tend in that stage to blame people. We blame our parents. We blame our economic circumstances we grew up in. We blame our boss, our spouse, etc. And when we learn to use the spiritual principles we teach, and we learn that there is a loving spirit that wants nothing but the highest and best for us, that nothing stands in our way of that this spirit responds to us, we become empowered. And we move into what Beckwith called the manifestor consciousness, the manifestor stage. And this is all well and good. I mean, we're meant to enjoy life and to have the things we want. And if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we really need to have the basics down before we can evolve to a higher level of consciousness. But with all the adding in our lives, there is a part of us that is not completely fulfilled. At some point, we need to move to a more cutting edge in our spiritual development. And this is when we come to the part about releasing, the part about subtracting in order to add value and fulfillment in our lives. So in the by me phase, the ego is basically in control. We have tools like visualization, where we picture what we want and imagine it's happening and help bring it about. We use affirmations, we use affirmative prayer. But the bottom line is it's our human side, not our spiritual side, our egoic side, that has chosen those goals. And when we begin to move into the next stage, which instead of a manifestor stage is a channel stage, we become channels for the divine energy, for the divine guidance. We surrender and we allow Spirit to set the stage. Now, that is not a spirit, a God outside of ourselves. That is the spark within us. As Raphael Warnock reminded us, it lives right within us. It is who we are as well. So I want you to imagine, as our community is going through this visioning process for a new home, that all of us can be visioning, opening up and listening to guidance for our life purpose, for Spirit's highest and best idea of who we are and meant to be on the planet, and how exciting that might be. The first question in visioning process, when we get into a real meditative space, is what must I become in order for this spirit? Well, it's actually the second question. The first question is, what is Spirit's highest ideal for our new church home, for my life? The second question, what must I become in order for that vision to manifest? In our recent visioning for our new home, I'm going to share just a couple things people came up with that Spirit guided them to think. And I share these because I think they might have relevance to your own life when you think about what do you need to embrace in order to embody Spirit's highest vision of your life. So people said, I need to become open to possibilities. I need to be open-hearted. I need to be ready to follow divine guidance. Now, the next question is, what must I release in order for this vision to become manifest? Here's where the rubber meets the road, and here's where my talk title comes in, Addition by Subtraction. Here are some of the things people said this past week when Laura Stewart led our community visioning. I need to release fear. I need to release the need to control. I need to release lack mentality. As I read this list, I'd like you to think about what your life would look like if you could truly release any one of these things. I need to release impatience, attachment or preconceived notions about how things should work out. I need to release playing small, the idea that we have to make it happen. I love that. You know, I had a beautiful spiritual mentor and practitioner named Reverend Alice Bandy, who has made her transition not a year or so ago. And I remember coming to her one day in a practitioner session when I was community leader here, concerned about something. I don't remember what the issue was, but I was saying to her, I don't know how I'm going to do this, Alice. I don't know how I can do this. And she said to me, you can't. And at first I kind of went, what? And then I realized what she meant. She meant you, Kimberly, and your egoic small human self cannot, but Spirit can. So when we start to release our need to control, our need to have preconceived ideas, our attachment to what it looks like, Spirit moves in always to guide us, to bless us. So on the subject of subtraction rather than addition, I'd like to read a short quote by one of our practitioners in our movement, Ray Jordan. She said, all spiritual work is actually the process of subtraction, the releasing of old ideas about us and false beliefs about life. She goes on to explain that by releasing those things, we open to the highest good. We open to possibilities, which of course is our theme this month. So I would like to relate a little story that happened to me this week. I think I might have mentioned last week that I was so excited by everything that came through in our visioning about our new church home. It was just lovely, and we were all feeling alive and positive. And then I went into a weekend session that CSL offered called Welcome Back Summit. And I heard about all the logistics that we have to think about, that we need to think about when we open our new center and finding our new center and making it safe. And I went into a space of, oh my goodness, and feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. So this week in meditation, I love what can happen when we open to divine guidance. I was opening myself. I was intending to be in that channeled state of receiving guidance. And what came at first was kind of interesting. It was a memory that came through. This is how spirit can work sometimes. So here's the memory. About 8 years ago, I was living in a very lovely apartment in Huntington Beach, California. It had lovely grounds, a swimming pool and fountains and very well landscaped. But it was expensive, and it worked because I shared it with a roommate or an apartment mate. There were 2 basically master suites in this apartment. My roommate at the time was moving out to move in with her boyfriend, and I needed to find another roommate, and it wasn't happening. So I had sent out, I had moved my feet, I had sent out on the internet ads, and I'd put up posters around the beautiful big complex where I lived. And one day I was swimming in the pool, and I came up for air. Now, mind you, I was swimming laps, and I had finished a repeat of, I don't know how many laps, and I got to the shallow end of the pool and lifted my cap and took off my goggles for a minute to take a breath. And just as I lifted my cap, there were two women sitting at the shallow end of the pool, and I heard one of them say my name. I didn't know these women. And it turns out they were looking at my ad for my apartment. And I talked to them. I took one of the women up to show her the apartment. She was very interested in it. Now, as it turns out, she didn't end up being my roommate. Another whole miraculous thing happened later, and it was fine. But what I realized in that moment was what a normal that was, what a miracle that is normal, because it happens all the time, these kind of synchronicities, that at the very moment I took a breath, at the very day and hour I was at that pool, these two women were there looking at my ad. And so what happened for me this week is it just changed my faith and my outlook on this whole situation that we're about to embark on, which is very exciting, finding a new church home, and also can be a little challenging. But what I realized is Spirit has our back, that as we continue to vision and open ourselves to this vision so that Spirit can help us create the intentions for what we're looking for, we will be supported every step of the way. I give thanks for that experience, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gotten quiet and gone into meditation. So I share this because this can happen for any of us at any moment when we're willing to be open and listen and release our ideas of how things have to be and accept help from the divine. It is there. It is ready and waiting for us, and it can appear in the form of amazing synchronicities, like my surfacing at the moment they were talking about my apartment. Love that story. Michael Beckwith shared a story in his book of the month that we're studying this month. It's called Life Visioning. The subtitle is A Transformative Process for Activating Your Unique Gifts and Highest Potential. So when we're talking about addition by subtraction, one of the things that we need to subtract from our lives is judgment about ourselves, judgment even about the way we meditate, right? Because it doesn't always work. It doesn't always produce meaningful results, but we continue it as a spiritual practice. We're committed to it. The other thing we need to subtract from our lives is judgment, unforgiveness. And so here is Beckwith's story he tells in Life Visioning. Back in the 80s, he had applied to be the pastor, the minister, at a church in Huntington, well, it wasn't in Huntington Beach, it was in Orange County, California. And while the process was going on where they were looking for their new pastor, rumors began to circulate. And one of the rumors was that Beckwith had never finished his ministerial studies, that he wasn't truly a licensed Science of Mind minister, which of course was false. The other rumor that happened was that, if they hired I'm going to read from the book here. If an African American were made senior minister, this was some of the comments that were going around, it would bring down property values and people would start parking on the lawn. People went on to describe more negative things about Beckwith in particular, and negative things about African Americans in general. What he did, he writes, is he immediately went into his forgiveness practice. He did not judge, he did not fight, but he really began to practice forgiveness toward those who had hurled these racial epithets about him and toward him. And soon after that, he received an invitation to attend a monthly ministerial meeting in Orange County, or in that area. And as he was approaching the building where the meeting was happening, he recognized a voice. He says it was a highly respected minister in our movement, and he zeroed in on what he heard the person saying. And this is what he heard. "There's something troubling happening," he nervously announced. "A young black man is a front runner for the position as senior minister at one of our churches. This is a travesty, and we have to pray to prevent this from happening." Wow, this is in the 80s. That's not that long ago, right? So this experience, coupled with what was happening with the selection committee, made Beckwith decide to withdraw his application. Now, mind you, he continued his forgiveness practices. He got to I will read you this. He got to the point where he was not angry at these people. He said, "Genuine forgiveness and unconditional love bubbled up in my heart, enabling me to emerge from this experience free of blame, to pursue the senior minister position at the, free of blame or scars on my spirit. It became clear to me that I was not to pursue the senior minister job in Orange County, so he withdrew his application. Now, the rest of the story you may well know. After that, what Michael Beckwith did is he went into a regular, sustained visioning process weekly in his living room with a small group of people. And out of that visioning was birthed Agape Center for Spiritual Living, which is now called Agape International. It's a huge, powerful church, very diverse in the LA area with 10,000 members. Talk about addition by subtraction. Let go of judgment, of anger, of unforgiveness. Let go of our need to focus on something like that pulpit in Orange County and decide that's what I have to have, and allow Spirit to guide, allow Spirit to move in, allow Spirit's highest idea of our lives, our communities, our work life, our relationships, whatever it is, to be made manifest. So moving beyond stage 2, which is, remember, the manifester stage, what we need to do is release control, which our ego doesn't always like to do. I know that for sure. We need to surrender. And we're not, Beckwith reminds us, we're not surrendering to some anthropomorphic, dominating deity out there or up there. We're surrendering to what lives within. And we're surrendering to the next powerful stage of our own spiritual growth. Here's an affirmation Beckwith offers. I'm available to what wants to evolve and emerge through me. You might say that with me. I'm available to what wants to evolve and emerge through me, and I'm willing to participate. I'm willing to participate and embody what it takes for me to do so. Beautiful. So remember, it's not our conscious mind in this whole process that sets our goals and sets the vision. It is our superconscious mind. It is that part of our mind that's connected with infinite mind, because it is. It's that part of our mind that relies on intuition, that indwelling knowing within us that is Spirit's voice whispering to us. I want to end with a quote from Michael Beckwith's book, which once again speaks to this idea, I think, of addition by subtraction. If you're ready for the next stage, if you're ready to move past that, all that getting, and ready to release and let go and surrender, oh my, talk about open to possibilities. That's what happens. This is what Beckwith says. Much of our inner growth is accomplished by letting go of that which no longer serves us, including habits, points of view, perceptions, opinions, whatever blocks the next stage of development. Spiritual growth is not about getting, it's about letting. I love that. Spiritual growth is not about getting, it's about letting. Letting ourselves release whatever hinders clear seeing and right action so that we can enthusiastically move forward into living our highest potential. And so, my friends, I know that we can indeed experience addition by subtraction as we release and let go, as we listen and as we follow our intuitive guidance. Let's go into prayer. And I'm going to invite Anton to play some music underneath for us. In this moment, I recognize once again that infinite intelligence, that love intelligence that permeates all of life, that is the source of all of life, that birthed me, that birthed each one listening to this broadcast, each one in this center where we're having a skeleton crew. It birthed every single person on the planet, and it imbued itself, embodied itself as them. So as Raphael Warnock reminded us, we each are a spark of that divine one. I know it's never far. We can never be separate. And I know that as we make sure that our own needs are met and the needs of everyone around the planet, as we begin to make a world that works for everyone, there is this opportunity to experience addition by subtraction. There's this opportunity to be still and know, to be still and be guided, to be still and receive from that divine one life information, vision of what the next incredible vision of our life can look like. Our spiritual magnificence, that is what we help people do, embrace our spiritual magnificence. And so as we commit this week to visioning for our own lives, to surrendering, to letting go, to looking at those things which no longer serve us, I know that we are supported by that one mind. And I know as we do this, we stand in solidarity with everyone who's grieving, the Asian American Pacific Islander community, our Black and people of color communities around the world that are still experiencing the brunt of racism and discrimination. And I truly know, as Raphael Warnock spoke in our Senate chambers this week, that we can make a world that works for everyone. We can have a democracy that is open to possibilities, that works for everyone. We can have a world that supports the divine spark that lives within each of us. It is possible. It is indeed possible. And I just give thanks for my own experience this week of the reminder of the way it works when we're willing to let go of our egoic need to control, and we're willing to surrender to that divine intelligence. I give great thanks for this philosophy. I give great thanks for the opportunity to speak this word. I give thanks for everyone watching. I release this word knowing that it is heard, as all prayers, it is answered, and we say together, and so it is. Amen. Back now to Anton Miserak and Laura Berryhill.
With a song out of that agape community.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all myself. I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient, and I didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you got to let it go. Let it all go. And this is what you have to say: I release and I let go. Let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God.
I don't know about you, but we were clapping back here. Thank you, Anton and Laura. Free in the Spirit. Now is the time we talk about the spiritual practice of sacred giving. This is when we get to be conscious and grateful for all the good that flows to us, and we are willing to share a portion of that good to the places where we're spiritually fed. So if you would say our affirmation with me, which will be coming up on the screen if it's not already. From the love of pure spirit within me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal and bless and prosper. It is evidence of my faith and my belief. It does great work in the world, and it returns to me multiplied abundantly. Thank you all so much to those who have continued to support Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley through these isolated times. There are two ways you can contribute. One is to go to our website, cslroguevalley.org, and hit the donate button. You can also set up recurring payments there. Or you can mail a check to CSLRV, P.O. Box 1458, Medford, Oregon 97501. A few quick announcements. We continue our morning spiritual practice calls on Monday and Wednesday, and Laura Stewart does a call Thursday evening at 7 p.m. It's a half-hour call on Zoom, a time for a little spiritual practice and connection. It's quite lovely. So look for details in our newsletter about how to get on that Zoom call. We have classes coming up, and it's time to register. The Foundations of Science of Mind is the place to start. Everyone I have ever talked to who has taken this class, including me, has called it life-changing. It is taught by our beloved minister, Reverend Michelle Ariano. It starts on Wednesday evening, April 7th, runs 10 weeks. There's an early bird $50 discounted tuition due for another week. If you sign up on our website, if you register by March 28th, you will receive that discount. Trust me, you will not regret taking that class. If you've had foundations and you want to continue your journey, your spiritually journey with us, we have a Roots of Science of Mind class coming up, taught by a powerful practitioner by the name of Deborah Bongard. This class looks at the major influences on our founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes. And once again, it is not only a reading of what other authors said, but how do we apply these principles in our lives to make powerful changes personally? Don't miss that. Same thing applies. Early bird special if you sign up, same meeting time on a different Zoom call starting April 7th, Wednesday evening. If you want to receive our newsletter and don't, there's a place to sign up on our Facebook page under email, or you can email us at cslroguevalley@gmail.org. Before we go to our closing song, I want to express great thanks to so many of you. When you've mailed in checks and tithes, we've received the most beautiful love letters from you for this past year when we haven't been meeting in person. And I decided to share some of the excerpts from some of those letters. They're in this past week's newsletter. And as Laura and Anton sing our final song, you'll see them come up on the screen. So from my heart to your heart, thank you so much. And let's let Anton and Laura take it away once again.
In the spirit of an extended St. Patrick's Day, an Irish tune, the Blarney Pilgrim.
How delightful. So I hope you enjoyed both the music and those beautiful love letters. I wrote a love letter back to our community, so if you get the newsletter from last week, please check it out. Have a beautiful week, this first week of spring, and remember that as we stay open to possibilities, there is addition happening by subtraction, by releasing, letting go, surrendering. Much love, everyone. Take care.